Peace, brothers and sisters. This is James Anike, Dr. James Anike. We're about to start Soul Liberation Station. We'll give folk another couple of minutes, seconds to join us, and we'll get going. Today, we're just coming to you live on Facebook Live and YouTube. So just Facebook Live and YouTube, but we certainly want to hear your comments. And as before, if you want to call, if you're in the United States, if you want to call, you can actually call me, and I'll give you that number shortly. But we're starting in just a minute, and we look forward to your input, your participation, and your support. Peace, 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 brothers and sisters. Again, this is Dr. James Anike. This is Soul Liberation Station. The purpose of Soul Liberation Station is to heal, empower, and inform the Black community. And we want you to be a part of this love revolution. And we want you to participate. Later on, we're going to open it up for you to call. And again, we don't have the number of phone lines we used to have when we were on air. But you can call. We got that one line, 317 529 3768. That's 317 529 3768. And I'm going to grab the cord so you can be able to hear if you call in. But it's a beautiful day here in Zimbabwe. This is I want to say, 7th Soul Liberation Station broadcast from Zimbabwe. And today I wanted to do something special, and it even became more special. And I'll say why in a second. But so many of you asked different questions about how this move has happened. And you show some fascination with the pictures and other things I share about my journey. And I thought today would be a good day just to give you some reports and some insights on things that I haven't, specifically about how to move to Africa. And so that conversation and subject went to another level because I met Sister Sifikile. And Sister Sifikile she's from Zimbabwe, but she's from another part of Zimbabwe, which has its own cultural, realities and language. And she moved here to Butare 4 years ago. And I thought that would add another interesting element to our conversation about making connection to the African continent. And so we're here, and I'm looking forward to your questions. This might be a good time to start to get them in. Again, we'll be talking about how to move to the continent, how to move to the motherland. But we will, really be talking about culture. We'll be talking about simple things like food and language and all those kinds of things. But I want to introduce again our guest liberator. Now, sister, we don't just have anybody on Soul Liberation Station. We have those people who are actually engaged and involved in some way in healing, empowering, and informing Black people. And you certainly are doing that by both your academic pursuits and what you do as an educator and what you do in terms of connecting to the, I would say, cultural community here in Butare. So you help me make some connections today. So if you don't mind, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you work and what you do, and let the Soul Liberation family know who you are.
All right.
And speak loud because we want to make sure everybody on that Facebook hears you.
All right. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. All courtesy given to Dr. James. I'm Sifikile Mlilo, a psychologist by profession and a lecturer as well. I work at Manicaland State University of Applied Sciences. I've been in the education industry for 25 years now.
Okay.
I've taught at different levels, at high school level, polytechnic level, and now I'm at university level. I have a whole lot of interest around healing, psychological practice, and I really and truly embrace the cultural aspects of psychological practice.
Excellent. And not to get too far off the subject that we already said, one of the things that I've been saying to mental health professionals over the last 3 years, and even more so the last year or two, and I don't know if I'm tired, but this is certainly true for America, that we in America are in a mental health crisis. Would you say you've seen any of that here on the continent? How is Africa doing, in particular, particularly Zimbabwe, doing as it relates to mental health today in comparison to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and so forth?
I think we have moved quite a long way
Okay.
to a higher level.
Mhm.
People are now very much educated around mental health issues.
Okay.
And yet, we still need to up our game.
Yeah.
Culturally, one would not visit a psychologist or a mental health practitioner because there's still that intact family system
Okay.
where an individual or a family would rather they gather and solve the problem. So we are in a scenario where we are slowly embracing psychology, slowly embracing the mental health perspective.
Yeah.
However, there's also the concern that we're moving towards Eurocentric philosophies, or rather, we are embracing Eurocentric philosophies instead of the Afrocentric philosophies.
So is it good that we're embracing Eurocentric philosophies as opposed to Afrocentric philosophies? Is that helping us or is that harming us?
It does help us. It does harm us. It helps us. It helps us in the sense that we're saying, look, we are in a global village, and we do need to adopt some principles that will work for the African individual.
Okay.
And then from the other side, you would want to say it can be a bit harmful, because then from the African perspective, we may be disarming the family system when it comes to solving challenges that are faced by individuals in the family system.
Yeah, and I'm trying to go back to the original subject, but this subject has kind of caught my attention because what you said in terms of there's a practice when persons are going through a mental health crisis, the family gathers together to help them get through it, and that is not the reality in America. Now, there are some instances where you might have what we call an intervention, but not to help in the healing process per se, just to kind of help that person see there's a problem. It's what would usually be the case, and then there may be some recommendations and some support for them going to get the mental health care that they need. But I love that idea that the family takes the responsibility to help to heal a person who's going through a mental wellness crisis. But the other thing that I thought you were going to say is that because what some people do in America is they feel like the church, like if you have a mental illness, then you ain't enough, or if you're not trusting God enough, you don't have enough faith, and so they connect mental illness with a lack of faith or bad spiritual foundation. Is that a thought that occurs here on the continent also?
Certainly in the African continent, that thought is there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a belief that if you are going to relieve yourself of the challenges and the burdens that you have, you may visit a pastor so that they pray for you.
Okay.
You may gather with your fellow congregants so that they pray with you. Some really believe in attending church services so that demons are cast. There is that strong belief that if someone is a challenge, it is a spiritual challenge. It's not just a physical challenge, but there's spirituality involved in it. Therefore, an individual would go to the church because they want to be prayed for. They believe certain demons will be cast out.
Interesting. Again, this is Soul Liberation Station. I'm James Anike. I'm your host. We have with us soon-to-be Dr. Sifi Kile, who is a guest liberator today. And again, you do know that the purpose of Soul Liberation Station is to heal, empower, and inform the Black community worldwide. And so we've been at this for 7 years, and now seeing how this will work in this new setting, me being here in Africa, many of you who have been long-time participants in Soul Liberation Station, Soul Liberation Radio, being in America. Of course, we started at noon Eastern Time. We started at 11 a.m. Central Time. And here in Zimbabwe, we started at 7 p.m. in the evening. So it's dark outside for us, whereas it's light outside where you are. But we are trying to bridge the gap between the continent and those who are in the diaspora. And we believe we are well on our way, with now this being our 7th or 8th, I think it's the 7th show of Soul Liberation Station here. And we do want to hear your comments. Again, our original topic is, and we're going to stick to this topic, of how to move to the motherland, So I'm going to share some insights of the things that I experienced in both preparing to move and actually making the move. But this subject of African mental wellness is something, if you heard something that sparked your interest, then I certainly encourage you to go ahead and send in a question about that. And if you want to call, the phone number is 317-529-3768. 317-529-3768. If you're in the U.S., you can call me on that number. So again, I guess we have both subjects if you have any questions or comments. So let me just share some thoughts and insights, some things that some of you know and some of you may not know. This move to Zimbabwe actually started in terms of the ideal 6 years ago. I shared my 10-year plan, and in that 10-year plan, it included moving to Zimbabwe, specifically Mutare, Zimbabwe, because I fell in love with Africa University, and I want to have a connection and work at Africa University. And so we're well on our way to make that happen. My plan is to be able to work there beginning in the fall of next year, fall of 2023. And that, over the last year, has meant me relieving myself of a lot of my material things. Some things I had with me, I had been carrying with me since I left Chicago in 1995. Carried them to Atlanta, lived there for 3 years, carried them to Indianapolis, and carried them around to the different houses we lived in Indianapolis. And so some things I'd never let go of and found some use for them. Some of it was just information I always wanted to have at hand so I could go and have access to it. But over the last year, I've done 3 yard sales, got rid of some things that way, gave a lot of things away, and some things I went through and I just had to throw a lot of files and documents and had to whittle it down to a very small amount. And so the number of bags from a 3-bedroom house with a big den and a big, living room had to be whittled down to 4 bags. And so some things there, like I think 4 boxes of things that are actually still in Indianapolis that are being held by people for me. But everything else was in those bags. And so you can imagine the trauma of letting go of some things that you had been holding on to for almost 30 years. And so that was one thing. So I want to say in making the move to the continent, making the move to the motherland, you gotta know that you're gonna have to let a lot of stuff go. Now, unless you decide you're gonna put it in storage, I chose not to do that because my plan is to not come back to the United States. My plan is that Africa is where I will live for the rest of my life if the Lord allows. Uh, and and the other hard thing about leaving is, of course, leaving friends, leaving family. My children are grown, uh, but yet you still want to be there. You want to be at the family gatherings and holiday celebrations and things of that nature. So you already have to get your mind together for that. Now, in planning to come to the continent, I did have some uh, insight as to what my media and communication needs might be. So I already had two phones, and I decided that I would put a new chip in one of the phones when I got here. Not a chip, but what do they call them? SIM card in the new one of the phones, and use a local number. So I do have a phone with a local number, and a phone with my uh, United States connections. Now, to my surprise, the first 2 weeks that I was here, I could not use my American phone to call back and forth. But I noticed that there were about 2 or 3 calls over a week's time that got through, and I was quite surprised at that those calls got through. And I see where it looks like we may be standing still on Facebook. I'm waiting to see if it will come back in, and I can't see what that message is saying. From here, you're waiting for the live video signal. What does that say? For those of you on YouTube, hold on 1 second. It looks like I may have to do something to make sure our Facebook connection is good. And I apologize for the interruption. I thank you for your patience. What does that say? Huh? I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to close it. And what does that say? Resume. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but we lost you for a second there, Facebook, but now we are back in action. Not sure what that was. I said before on Facebook, but that's what technology does. It does strange things. So we are back. And so having a sense of what my communication needs would be, I knew I needed internet, and I'd already investigated some of the internet service providers here before I got here, and settled on one. And I thought, and I'm sure I will get Wi-Fi when I get an actual home that is my home, and I'm very close to doing that, in fact. But so far, using the Wi-Fi from my cell service, tethering it to my other devices seems to work well. So this evening I'm tethered. These devices are tethered. YouTube is tethered to my main phone, and not YouTube. Well, yes, YouTube. And so that works for me. You know, I noticed that the internet service in the house that I'm in is not consistent. It will sometimes go out. Is that normal?
That's quite normal. It drops here and there. Even when you are using Wi-Fi from a major telephone services,
Yes.
it drops time and again.
Yeah. And so I found that having this particular cell phone service seems to be very consistent and works well for me. So that's how we're making it happen. Again, this is Soul Liberation Station. I'm your host, James, and DK Sister Sikile is with us. I still probably said it wrong. And we want to hear your thoughts, your comments about what has been said so far. And I want you to wait until we're about to go off to begin to roll in questions. If you got questions now, please send them on in so we can share them. And what I shared about my move, does that match anything you experienced in your move from Bulawayo? It helped our audience understand the difference between Bulawayo and Harare and Mutare.
All right. The main differences are the cultural aspects.
Okay.
Because there are different cultures in these regions.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the Bulawayo region is predominantly the Ndebele culture and the Ndebele speaking, while Harare and Manicaland are predominantly the Shona speaking. However, there are different dialects here and different cultures in a way, because they're differentiated by their ethnicity and the dialect. They may be similar with Harare and Mudare, but there are differences.
Okay.
Same applies to the languages. They're both of the Shona language, Mudare and Harare. However, the dialects are different. So I came from a region which is not Shona speaking, and I had to learn the language to survive and live with everybody in the community.
Okay. And in terms of the physical things that you had to do to move, were there any similarities to what I shared?
Well, in terms of the physical things, the similarities are there, because you're saying you're either packing your bags and coming over, or you're leaving some of your stuff there and trying to make up your mind what you're taking with you and what you're leaving behind. But generally, ideally, you would want to maintain your home from your hometown and sort of make a start afresh.
Okay. So you have a home in Bulawayo.
Yes, I have a
Okay.
home.
All right. Wonderful. Some of you asked about the two things: economic elements in terms of the money that's used here in Zimbabwe and how that transfers. I had some knowledge, some insight as to what to expect, because I knew the United States dollar was accepted here, but there are catches. For example, if your $20 bill is older than, I think, the year 2000, they won't take it. So if it says 1996 on it, they won't take it in most stores. So fortunately, I do find some places that'll take it. I try to be intentional now when I get, money to look and see what year it is. So if I need to say, hey, I can't take this, then I can do that. The other thing that's interesting is credit card. You can't use your American credit card in Zimbabwe. Fortunately, PayPal is an international card. So I'm able to use my my PayPal card here at ATM machines, in the store. I haven't had any real restrictions on using the PayPal. The only problem I find is when I'm getting cash out of the machine, it may not have the denominations that match what you asked for. So if I ask for $80, but that machine does not have $20 bills in it, then it'll kind of redirect me. And then I just have to kind of play around with it, because it's not going to tell me what denominations in it. I find that generally I either have to get $50 or $100. And if I get the 100, then it'll usually give me two $50 bills. If I get the 50, it'll give me the one $50 bills, which is a challenge, because then when you go into the store, a lot of times they don't have the money to cash it in U.S. dollars. So I didn't anticipate any of that, but I'm making my way. And the other thing is the food, and I'm really curious to know if this is the same for you. I've been so surprised at the different types of foods that I'm used to in America that are not here. My favorite food is spinach. That is my favorite food, spinach. There is no spinach in Mutare. I have searched high and low. The street vendors, because there's street vendors all up and down Chitepe, and none of them have spinach. None of the grocery stores have spinach, and they're well-stocked stores, but they don't have spinach. So that's been a challenge, which means now I'm eating iceberg lettuce. Never liked iceberg lettuce, so I'm struggling with that. And the other thing is I love turkey burgers. Can't find a ground turkey anywhere. In fact, I don't even think I've seen any turkeys since I've been here. So that's another challenge for me. And so I made some chili last week. I was able to do pretty good with that. I made some spaghetti this week. It was pretty bad. Well, it wasn't that good to me, because they didn't have tomato sauce. They had tomato puree. And that just didn't work well. It worked a little bit. So I have food challenges moving here. Now I'm trying to get familiar with all of the different foods. I'm assuming the food is the same in Bulawayo and Harare and Zimbabwe and Mutare.
Yes. The food is the same in these towns. However, Mutare is a small town.
Okay.
And so you are unlikely to get everything that you would need.
Right.
We have a lot more farmers in Mutare,
Yeah.
but they will provide their produce or send their produce to bigger towns like Harare and Bulawayo. So these big cities are likely to have all that you need compared to Mutare. The whole essence around sending produce to bigger towns is there's better business over there than there is this side.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it depends now on the preference of the entire market. What is commonly eaten as a vegetable in Zimbabwe in general would be what we call, people would generally say chomoria. That is the most commonly eaten. In most of the meals, you will have your chomoria and your meat.
A very robust, green, leafy, kind of food. It's not like greens that we have in the United States. It's a little bit more, I want to say chewy. We would cook some greens and they come out kind of soft. But what you're speaking of is more hard.
It's more hard and chewy, and it's slightly bitter. But that is the common food. That's the common vegetables. That is why you are able to get spinach. Only a few would go for that spinach. Therefore, in the gardens, you are unlikely to get a home-grown spinach, but rather the chomoria.
Yeah. And it's good. I like it. I'm still finding my way to like satsu. I haven't quite gathered the taste for that, and I'm waiting to go into a restaurant that has flavored satsu. Am I going to be looking in vain? Am I going to find some satsu with some butter and some sugar in it, or I'm not going to find it like that?
No, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find that. What you may find is satsu from another grain. I'm sure you've eaten satsu from the maize grain.
Yes.
You may find satsu from the sorghum or millet grain.
Okay.
That is what you're going to find. It is the staple right across Zimbabwe.
Yes.
It's cultural.
Yes.
So in every household, you will have your lunch, you will have your dinner with your satsu, your chomoria, your beef or your chicken, but mostly the beef.
Yeah.
The chicken is labeled or used as a special meat in a special meal.
Interesting. I didn't know that. In America, we call it the Negro National Bird. We eat chicken a lot. Brother Papa Nadini Zulu in Indianapolis has this question. He says, what is the colonial history there? What is the national language? What is the national currency? What is the socialization between Zimbabwe and African Americans? The socialization between Zimbabweans and African Americans. You got a lot of good questions in here. We'll take them one at a time, and I'm going to throw the first one to my sister. What is the colonial history in Zimbabwe?
We were colonized by the British for a long time. We adopted their systems.
Yes.
We adopted their language. English is the national language because it's the major national language.
Right.
When I speak to anybody in the street, I expect them to understand that it's the English language.
Right. And again, you said earlier that in Bulawayo, they don't speak Shona. You don't speak Shona there, so you have to learn Shona when you came here. Right on.
So there are many other languages constitutionally.
Right.
But the main one that has always been used, where we will get into meetings and speak in English. And if I realize you don't understand my language, I quickly switch to English. Because the assumption is we all know how to speak English.
Yeah, and I found it to be true. I've had very few instances where I found anybody who just didn't speak it at all. I believe Zimbabwe, which used to be called Rhodesia, got its liberation in 1979. Is that the right year?
Yes, the liberation was in 1979 and the independence was in 1980.
Okay, all right. Independence in 1980.
There was only 7 then.
All right, check that out. And um, uh, uh, oh goodness, I can't believe I'm not pulling his name out. The former president, Mugabe. Mugabe was a socialist, and so some elements of socialism are found in how the country is governed. You know, when you make money, something like 45% of it goes to the government. Am I right about that? And but I think there's some pluses, even though they don't have free public school. But my understanding is that free public school is rare all across the continent. So it's not that Zimbabwe is unusual in that regard. But I was told about the house that I'm looking at that the electricity bill is about $25 US a month. And so that's a part of the socialism here. The efforts to take back the land from European interests that has been going on for the last 20 years, was a part of that system. When Mugabe came into power, he said to the English folk who were still here and other nationalities that were here, that they would have 10 years and they would reclaim the land. Well, he did it in, I think, 20 years. He didn't even do it in the time frame that he said. And so when they started to do that, of course, America, Britain, and several other countries, European countries, really put some penalties on Zimbabwe. And then there's some other issues about Zimbabwe being prepared or not being prepared to take over large, efforts like farming and certain industries and factories that produce certain products. And so a lot of things were lost over the last 40 years. And so those challenges. I think that more than answers the question about colonialism. And I would say this: not just Zimbabwe, but much of Africa is experiencing a new form of colonialism from China, from Russia, and even from the United States. So it's interesting to see how that will play out as time goes on. Brother Kwabena also asks, what is the national language here in Zimbabwe?
Okay. In the past few years, we had said the national language was English.
Okay.
Until we constitutionalized 16 languages.
So now what you said earlier to me makes sense. Because I mentioned that I read that there were 16 languages here, but I didn't know that was constitutional. So there are more languages than the Constitution in Zimbabwe recognizes. But 16 that are primary, replacing English as the primary language. All right, excellent. And there's some conversation about teaching all 16 languages in the schools here in Zimbabwe. So that would be interesting to see how that is enacted. And lastly, let's see, the national currency. I said a little bit about that. You want to say something about the currency? How it's transitioned over the years?
Well, it has been a rough patch, particularly for us, for over close to 2 decades now.
Mm-hmm.
And we attribute that to our relations with other countries, especially in trade of minerals. That has caused a drop in our economy.
Right.
And we've had to continually change currencies. We've had to even adopt the United States dollars.
Right.
And we keep trying to make a balance and return to our own.
Right.
But it is a struggle.
It
is a struggle because we're not performing well in terms of the industry.
Right.
And we can't purely retain our own, the ZWL. We tend to transact in the United States dollars, the ZWL, and the Rand a lot more often because they are our neighbors. And sometimes we get to import from them.
Right.
So we are transacting in those. It's not as easy as we can imagine, but we're using 3 currencies.
Wow. And the Zim dollar, well, let me rephrase that. The 1 US dollar is equal to 800 Zim dollars. Yeah,
Yes.
that's fascinating. Interesting, especially when you see the street vendors, they have these big wads of money, in their hand, and you would think a wad of money this thick, that's about $1 million, but actually it may be like $20. I have these, they call them bones,
Yes.
and I'm really curious to know. I've asked a couple of people, nobody knows why they call them bones.
I actually also don't know
Okay.
why they call bonds.
Yeah.
I just call them bonds as well.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So I think that answers that question. And then the issue of socialization. My experience, Brother Kwabanah, is that there's not been much experience in socialization as it relates to Americans and Zimbabweans, because not many Americans move here or live here or even visit. From what I've seen, there are many who may come connected to African University, but for the most part, I know you mentioned you've only known of 3 people who have moved here from the United States in I don't know how many years. And people look at me like I got a third eye. Sister looked at me when she saw me walking down the street. Where are you from? And so I understand that. Everybody kind of looks at me different. I don't know if it's just my size or my hair, or I don't know how I walk. I don't know. Uh, but uh, but uh, my experience so far is that Zimbabwe, on the whole, is a very welcoming country, and that the people are friendly and not xenophobic, not fearful of strangers, but just curious. But once they understand, okay, y'all, you from the United States. One of the things I found interesting, this again will show you how unfamiliar people in Zimbabwe are with America. I've been to various places around the world, and people may say, where am I from? And I would say Chicago, because that's where I was born and raised. Well, in Zimbabwe, most people don't know what Chicago is. They are not familiar with Chicago. Even though I saw a brother just this afternoon with a Bulls t-shirt on, he may or may not know about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. But most people here have no geographical knowledge of the United States. They don't know what Indiana is or Illinois is, or so on and so forth. And so um, um, they just receive you, from again my experience, they just receive you as, hey, here's a brother who's made his way to Zimbabwe with no sense of where you came from. Now in other parts of, like America, if you say you're from Chicago, there's an understanding that comes with that you come from a rough city, and there's a certain kind of uh, reputation that people from Chicago have, that these are folk who don't play and all that. But here, that don't mean nothing. Is there a common perspective about what people of Bulawayo are like when they come to Mutare?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a common perspective because of the differences in cultures,
Okay.
and as well as perceptions
Mm-hmm.
of another culture.
Right.
That is very, very common.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also based on the experiences that people have had.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I'm from Bulawayo,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm generally on the reserve side and very much outright
Okay.
when I speak.
Mm-hmm.
And an individual from Durham
Mm-hmm.
is not outright
Mm-hmm.
when they speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to pick those differences. If you are from Bulawayo, in most instances, you are not right.
All right.
You're clear cut about what you say.
Yeah.
But if you are from Dari, you are unlikely to be clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
You will imply
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
keep going round and round.
Mm-hmm. Rather than just say what say. Yeah. That's interesting. Very interesting. Peace, brothers and sisters. Again, this is James Anike here in Mutare, Zimbabwe. This is Soul Liberation Station. The purpose of Soul Liberation Station is to heal, empower, and inform the Black community. And right now it's 40 minutes after the hour, and we want to hear from you. You can call. You can actually. We got one phone line. If you call in, we'll we'll hear you out. 317-529-3768. But most of you are communicating through Facebook, and we want to hear your comments and your thoughts. And I'm so glad to see so many of you who are here with us on Facebook. And even now, I want to encourage you to like and share this broadcast, because there may be other people who need to see and hear what we're talking about. Let me say a couple more things about the movement. Let me again introduce our guest liberator, Sister Sifi Kile, who is an academic, and her field is psychology, and she is one of the lecturers at one of the universities here in Mutare, and I was blessed to meet this sister, and she introduced me to some others at the National Gallery here in Mutare. So we had a wonderful time attending a program there at the National Gallery. And just to give you the heads up, there's a good possibility. I know that I'm going to do Kwanzaa again this year, as I did last year. Every night I'll do a Kwanzaa, or probably in this case, it'll be every afternoon. Those of you who are in the United States, we'll do a Kwanzaa celebration for about 30 minutes. And we may be doing work that out, so we can also use that as a way to bridge the gap. There are not a lot of folk who know about Kwanzaa here in Zimbabwe, and so we will share that. We will share that here. But I wanted to say just a couple more elements about the move, making the move here. Issues of passport. You want to make sure you get your passport or get your passport straight long before it's time to move. That's why I got held up. I had some passport issues that I had to work out. And it says in the literature that they want you to have a passport that's more than 6 months old, but that didn't matter in this case. My passport was it was renewed. It was my third renewed passport, and that might be a factor as to why it wasn't a problem, because it wasn't my first passport. And I had been here in Zimbabwe 2 other times, so that too might have helped. As far as a visa, when you get to Zimbabwe, you buy your visa in the airport. You get your visa in the airport. For me, it was $30. I think there's an amount that you pay when you come in, and an amount you pay when you're leaving out of the country. I think it's $50 when you're leaving out of the country. Now, I knew in advance, because I researched it, that in order to establish my businesses, my companies here, I would have to get a special visa for that. And in order to get that visa, you have to have an address, and you have to have a bank account. And so those are the 2 key things that I'm working on now, is getting that address, because you can't get a bank account without an address. And so those are some things that I had to plan on, and I'm planning on in moving. And I'm being very intentional, my sister, to not do anything that might violate my visa. I was in the grocery store, and this has happened several times, numerous times actually, where somebody will come up to me and say, "Are you going to use United States cash? Well, if you're going to use cash, give me the cash and let me use my card." Now, I don't know if that's legal or illegal. All I know is I don't want to violate my visa. And since I don't know, I'm not doing it. Now, let me ask you, is that legal?
It's common.
It's common.
It's common.
But it's illegal.
But it's illegal because this is a black market exchange.
Ah, okay.
Because I'm saying you're gonna swipe and we agree on how much I'm going to give in terms of the United States dollars.
Interesting.
But this is quite common because this is where we are all going for this exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't view it as illegal because it's common.
But from the legal perspective, it is illegal.
Yes.
Okay. And again, I don't want to do anything to violate my visa, or or look like I'm violating. So I'm gonna leave that like it is. Coming here also, what I hoped would happen in my first few weeks is that I would easily find housing. And of course, I stayed in Harare for the first 4 weeks. I wasn't trying to find a place there because that's not where I'm going to live. I knew I would be living here in Mutare. And so I stayed with friends there, and I'm glad I did, because that was a really good introduction to Zimbabwe, being here. My other visits were like 11 days, each time. So now I'm getting the real Zimbabwe experience in a lot of ways. And so I didn't start my search for a home until I got here in Mutare on the 23rd of November. And it's not happening as quick as I thought. What I am seeing is that the rent rather, is very low. And even purchasing a home here is very low. You know, you can get a house for $30,000, 80,000, 100,000 or more. You can get a pretty nice house here. And renting, I mean, you can rent a really nice house for about $400, a 3 bedroom. And I was quite surprised to hear that. And I'm looking at a 3 bedroom that's a lot less than even $400. Now it's in the hood. No, maybe it's not the hood. It's in a more what they call a high density area. And I said, yeah, I think I'll be okay in a high density area in Chicago, in Chicago, in phase 1. So I'm hoping to get that arranged. Um, so I'm saying that to say, what I did in coming here, rather than wait till I get here and start searching around for a place to stay, I booked, or rather, I booked the hotel room first. I stayed in the hotel for about a week, and then I stayed with my friends for a few weeks, and then I came here. And before coming here, I booked this Airbnb. So that's why I'm in an Airbnb. And so that was a good way to be here for a good long period of time and still search out. Now, even though I still haven't found a house, I have a better sense of how to do it now. And I've made more connections with more people, and that helps too. Because what happens is the houses go quick. If somebody puts up a house for rent today, somebody would have snuck in and rented it tomorrow. And so my thing is having enough people who are looking out for me, or being able to communicate and connect quick enough to get the housing I want. So you mentioned about, if you want to share some of what you experienced in your housing journey when you got here. Is there anything you'd like to share about that?
All right, when I got here, it was a bit of a struggle for me. Firstly, because of language. I speak Sindebele and they speak Shona here.
Right. Even though in the same country, different languages.
Different languages. So I needed to negotiate.
Right.
But I got a lot of help from a workmate who is a local individual.
Good.
And within 2 weeks of my arrival here, I got accommodation. Although that was not my place of interest, I had to make do.
Yeah.
And slowly I began to network with individuals, and they would give pointers to where I could get what I want.
Absolutely. All right. Brother Kwabena makes another statement here on our Facebook page. He says, brother, please say more about the knowledge of Kwanzaa there in Zimbabwe, but not a lot of knowledge about America or American geography or even African Americans. Okay, I think I can handle that. In Zimbabwe, they don't know Kwanzaa. That's really the bottom line. I found an article in the local paper, the Manica Post, from 2017, where the writer did an article on the African American holiday of Kwanzaa. And so, but again, in my conversations with individuals, I haven't come across anybody who knew what Kwanzaa was. So this will be an opportunity to share some insight. And let me say this, 2 things that are really key to what I've been doing over the last 40 years. One is these cultural things, especially as it relates to celebrating holidays. And the other thing, more recently, is this emphasis on Black love, specifically systematic agapism, and how we as Black folk have been harmed a certain way and need to be healed a certain way. And part of what systematic agapism is about. And what I realized in being here is these 2 issues are very much needed here in Zimbabwe, and I would venture to say across the continent of Africa, that we are not as aware of our culture here. Let me rephrase that. That's not exactly true. They are naturally cultural. African people here are naturally cultural. The ideal, for example, in the church that I'm attending, St. Peter United Methodist Church, there was someone who passed. Someone in the family members, a family member had a passing in their family. I think it was a husband who passed. And what they do is they, every day until the person is buried, members from the church will go to the house and visit the house. And I thought that was so beautiful, and that certainly is a part of the culture. And there's some other elements of culture that I see that's in the different churches and in how the people, move and do things as families, and things of that nature. So without question, that's culture, which I would identify as African culture. But in terms of Afrocentrism and the ways in which Black folk were thrust together in America, so that regardless of what country you came from, what language you spoke, you all became African Americans, you all became Black. That is not the reality here. There's still a very real understanding of the individual cultures and the ways that they do things. So even among the Shona, there's some elements of the culture that are done differently here in Manika land, as opposed to what you might experience in Harare. Is that, what's that, Shona? Yeah, yeah. But what's the area called? I know this is Manika land, but what was that?
It's still Harare Metropolitan.
Okay, got you. And so there are those differences. And so my point is, Kwanzaa is not celebrated here, and I hope that this will be a way to, and the need is, that's what I was trying to say, that there's a need for the celebrating Kwanzaa. I think it would be a rich addition to the already rich culture that exists here. And I believe that this commitment to systematic agapism or Black love is also what's needed here in ways that I didn't anticipate. And I think will be well received. Because as I listen to different people speak, they bring up love. The preacher on Sunday in service said something about love, and not just in the biblical sense, but from a community sense, from a sense of the country. And the sister in the program we were in at the National Gallery also spoke of love. And again, that just was good confirmation for me. You want to add anything to what I just said? Okay. All right, then. It is 53 minutes after the hour, so we only have a couple more minutes left. And Sister Varetha on our Facebook page asks this question. Do they celebrate Christmas in Zimbabwe?
We celebrate Christmas. We've already started celebrating Christmas.
All right.
We enjoy celebrating as family.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, people are traveling either from the urban areas to rural homes.
Mm-hmm.
It's cultural in Zimbabwe that you have a home in the urban area, you have a home in the rural area.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't have, certainly you have your grandparents in the rural area.
Yeah.
Or people are traveling from their town of work
Mm-hmm.
to their hometown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hive of activity.
Yeah.
And they're looking forward to the special day,
Mm-hmm.
which is often celebrated with family.
Okay. And that is beautiful.
Very
I believe that's the way it should be.
Very beautiful. Yes, the Christians will go to church.
Yes.
There's always that commemoration.
Is there Santa Claus?
Santa Claus is there usually in the shops.
Okay.
Depends on which shops are, and the children are taken there,
Mm-hmm.
and they love it.
So do African people in Zimbabwe tell children about Santa coming to bring them toys and they better be good and all those kinds of things for African children?
This depends on the socio-economic status.
Okay.
For instance, if I'm in the rural areas, it's unlikely that I know anything about Santa. But if I'm in the urban area,
Mm-hmm.
depending again on my socio-economic status as family,
Mm-hmm.
then this child will know about Santa.
Yeah.
Then they'll put up the Christmas tree
Mhm.
over Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about your upbringing, your background,
Mhm.
and your socio-economic status.
Let me say this, Sister Eunice Trotter in Indianapolis, who I credit with making me look like I was a good pastor, she was our administrative assistant at Scott Church, said that she wanted to hear more from you which means that I got to have you back again because what Eunice says has to happen. So we'll make that happen.
All right.
Brother Dennis in Indianapolis says, see, all of our people are coming in, connecting from Indianapolis today, but that's good. Brother Dennis says, have the people in Zimbabwe expressed an opinion on the possibility of adopting the proposed BRICS currency. I don't know what that is. Yes, I thought I was hoping you knew. Brother Dennis, we don't know what BRICS is. And I know you made a comment about it on my Facebook page a few days ago, and I did ask what it meant. Oh, okay, he has an answer. Brazil, Russian, India, China, South African currency. So I'm assuming this is some type of unified currency that will be shared among those countries. And I'm gonna give. First of all, let me say, Brother Dennis, I've heard nothing about it. My sister here is from Zimbabwe. She's never heard anything about it. And I would think that there's more conversation among African nations about a African currency, throughout the continent, as opposed to this kind of currency. I know that, as I mentioned earlier, there are colonial forces that still have an impact here in Zimbabwe and different parts of Africa. But there is also a very strong commitment to neocolonialism, Africa for the Africans. And again, that was what attracted me to, one of the key things that attracted me to Africa University, was those young brothers and sisters were very serious about not falling into the same colonial traps as before. So I know that various African countries are in business with other countries, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because as long as it's balanced, Zimbabwe is positioning itself along with other countries to become a major force in the steel industry. To by next year begin putting together an infrastructure to make steel products that will be sold throughout the world. Zimbabwe, of course, is becoming a force, and has become, I would say, in the gold and diamond industry. There are mines here that are rich and full with those minerals. And they haven't found oil here, as far as I know, but they are looking. There's some expectation that oil will be found here in Zimbabwe, and that may mean it would become an oil force. And there's so many other conversations of things being built, many of those things in conjunction with other countries. But I'm hoping, and what I'm hearing is that there is a stronger commitment to make sure that the common people of Zimbabwe benefit from it. And from a report that I heard on the news yesterday, there's a hope that, oh no, this was in something I think one of the speakers said this afternoon, that by, I want to say she said 2030, I think she said 2030, that more people, the economic resources of more of the common people will have increased in that time. So, and see, as I said, we're getting all this interest right at the end. This will be our last comment, because I believe we may be over time now. No, we're right at 12:59. But Dennis said it is proposed to replace the dollar-based currencies. Several other African nations have expressed an interest, Nigeria, Ethiopia, etc. And again, that may be the case. And I don't know if that means you're talking about a cashless system. But again, I've heard nothing about it. And I do kind of listen to the news. I've heard no conversations about it. But that's not to say conversations are not happening. It's just that it might not be something that's being commonly discussed. I think Zimbabwe is more interested in developing its own currency than anybody else's, and that includes a unified African currency. So I think that answers that question. Sister Varetha? Yes, she says she hears a squeaky noise. Those are frogs. I thought they were crickets. But my last visit, I asked somebody what those were. Those frogs, right? Yeah, that noise you hear, Sister Varetha, is frogs. And they make a lot of noise.
It's rained heavily in the past 2 days.
Yes, and it's rained, and that contributes to it. So that's what you hear, Sister Bree. Thanks for that question. Brothers and sisters, thanks so much for sharing time with us. My sister, do you have any other final thoughts you'd like to share that you want to make sure that people know and hear?
I'm looking forward to getting back onto the program.
Right on?
Second time around.
Oh, it got to happen because Sister Eunice said we got to do it. So we're going to make it happen. Brothers and sisters, again, thanks so much for being with us on Soul Liberation Station. My name is Dr. James Anike. And again, the purpose of Soul Liberation Station is to heal, empower, and inform the Black community. And we want you to be a part of this love revolution. And not just the Black community, but the Black community worldwide. And again, I remind you, if you want to support Soul Liberation Station, we are looking for sponsors, advertisers, partners, and all you got to do is reach out to me, and I will make sure we make that happen. And the show, I believe, will only grow. We're now developing relationships here in Zimbabwe, and I believe that you can expect to have more conversations that will again help bridge the gap, especially in our understanding of one another. So that we can kuumba, we can engage in creativity, which involves making others more beautiful and beneficial than they were when you encountered them. And so that's a key part of what we're trying to do. So thanks so much. I'm thankful for those who are making comments. I see so many comments at the end coming in, and I'll try to respond to those later on. I hope that you have a blessed rest of your day. Again, it's still the afternoon in the United States. For many of you, it's nighttime here, and our day is coming to an end. But let your day be powerful, meaningful. Please like, love, or share Soul Liberation Station on your Facebook page so other people can get this good information. And if you ever want to see this show and others, most of them are on our YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and put in Soul Liberation Station, you'll find almost all of the shows that we've done since we've been here in Zimbabwe. Again, peace, brothers and sisters. We pull together, we'll rise together. Let's make this happen. Let's keep on pulling together and making it happen. And I certainly look forward to your continued input and interest in what we have going on. I want to also say I am going to do something real soon, hopefully sometime this week, where I'll be in the grocery store. Somebody said they want to be in the grocery store with me, and so I want to do that, and I'm going to do something special just in the grocery store sometime this week. So keep your eyeballs open for that. I'll be back on Monday with our morning Bible study. Only 15 minutes. I hope you'll join in for the God's Love Bible study on Monday. Anytime on Monday, but we do it on Monday morning your time. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. We'll be back next week. All right. So thank you so much.
Long time. Hold your head. You made it so real.